Really quick before getting into the video, I actually released some merch, but I completely forgot to time it properly with promoting it. So yeah, I have some merch on Bonfire. If you want to check it out and support the channel, that would be awesome. As well as I have a Patreon. All of the links will be in the description below. Once again, thank you all for your support. Without further ado, let's get into the video. My apologies for being late. That's on me. I was held hostage in Cambodia for tax fraud. But here I am, nonetheless. Berserk Chapter 374. The last time one of these came out, I had 2 kids. Off of the last recent chapters, it seems that worse has been getting worse for the whole group. As for the story itself and where it's going, I like the overall direction of starting off with where we left off last time, the Kushans boarding the ship and them finding Guts in a room specifically. We get some time with Serpico and Isidro and them surveying the entire situation and really seeing the dire place that they're in at the current moment, completely being held hostage with nothing to do. However, the Kushans, instead of getting on board and wiping out everybody, it seems that they have a very different purpose for being here. The big thing with the chapter really, although later on, is first when the Kushans find Guts in the room, still completely defeated and out, which I like. And as I said before many times with these chapter reviews, at least the last 2 or 3, is I like this. I like the direction of a defeated Guts, because we've become accustomed to seeing Guts get angry and lash out. But seeing him in this manner is a really nice thing, seeing other aspects of the character being explored as it has been before. As even going back to the Black Swordsman arc, one of the defining moments was seeing Guts, this character that we were sold as in a specific way. It was sold to us in a certain way, but seeing the sad side to him, the remorseful aspect to his character, is what helped make him human and ground him. And so seeing more of that being brought on, given the circumstances that just happened, is wonderful. As well as we need to keep in mind the context. Everyone that he cares about, other than Casca, is currently being held hostage on this ship. If he loses it based off of what just happened, I don't know many people who are going to survive, or at least come out of that whole situation feeling positive about him and wanting to be around him, although I'm sure there are still a few that would. It just wouldn't be a good direction for the story, especially given what happens afterwards, where we find out that Sila and the Bakiraka are on this mission, taking over the ship and bringing it hostage, but Rickert is here as well. And the last prominent thing we all remember about Rickert is smacking the living taste out of Griffith, which is something that I was sent a lot regarding Rickert being able to lay a hand on Griffith and Guts not being able to, and the different ways that this could be explored and how Guts needs to be a little more focused, akin to how he was when he first left the Band of the Hawk. Really the only time he left the Band of the Hawk, but that's besides the point. It's one of those things where I think that's an interesting direction and it's an interesting thought. I'm not antagonistic towards it. However, you could easily explain it away maybe with just Griffith didn't really sense any physical danger coming from Rickert. It wasn't anything fatal. Versus Guts' sword swings, that was done with killing intent. It's a little tricky again because none of those things are for sure confirmed in any way, shape, or form, as well as Griffith's powers and the extents of them are always a little bit tricky to discuss. So I won't get a little too much into that, but I think Rickert showing up at this time is wonderful. It's heading in the direction that me and a lot of others have speculated, where Griffith, as I've said before in a previous video, his enemies are just going to keep stacking up, and eventually there's going to be a large amount of powerful people going against him, more than he might be able to handle. As well as there's still some other things that need to be moved into place. Again, I like where the story is going. I like what it's deciding to focus on, where it's deciding to bring our attention towards. I think a lot of the stuff having these characters meet once again, seeing the state in which Guts is currently in and Casca's in once again, I think we're going to be getting this final push to resolving so many different things. And when I mean resolving so many different things, I want to be very clear here in more so the actual narrative stuff, because it's one of those things where the lore of Berserk, of some of the more mysterious characters like Zod and Skull Knight, I'm very well aware that a lot of people would like to figure out the mystery behind those characters. But in all honesty, I think those are aspects that still could be left very mysterious. And as long as the actual narrative stuff, the present stuff with Guts, Griffith, Casca, and all of the characters surrounding them is handled, you could continue to leave Zod a total mystery and I'll be fine with it. As well as, with the speed in which the chapters are coming out, how much time they want to spend focusing and sort of wrapping that stuff up while we have these massive turning points within the story is going to be a little bit tricky. As I've said with all the Berserk chapters that come out, it's one of those things where we need to keep it within the context. as due to the release schedule of Berserk, especially, once 3 or 4 months pass, you start to grow very impatient, and it feels like whatever chapter you're getting isn't enough. But I would urge anyone to read it to keep it within its entire context. Not every chapter can be some massive climax. And again, with the way that it's sort of bringing things all together and having Rickert show up, opens the door to plenty of possibilities, which has always been very Berserk like. It answers a question, and now there's 5 more that need to be answered, which leaves you wanting more and speculating on the next chapter, which I always think is a good thing. Overall, the artwork as well, I was really happy to see, as even though I think their previous work, there were some rough areas when they first sort of took over, and there were aspects of it that they definitely got better in. I think this was one of the, if not the chapter that was the most Miura-esque in the style of drawing a lot of the faces, especially that Rickert panel. I was completely blown away by it when I saw it. So the studio's been doing a really good job on improving in the artwork department and getting more like the style that we were getting accustomed to with Berserk, although of course Miura was one and only. The intentions of the Kushans themselves, there's a little bit left to speculate on their exact purpose for why they're doing what they're doing, what knowledge they have. It's very possible that they got their information beforehand on where to find these people, as with Silat and the Bakiraka being there, that would make sense, especially considering how important those characters are. It's definitely a lot more than just stumbling into random Kushans, and I think that's a good thing because it's one after the other and we save time, although they could have had it that if the Kushans were to then take the hostages all the way to Silat, the Bakiraka, where Rickert is also there, if they wanted to do it in that sort of way, then we could have, gone back to Casca and everything going on in Falconia. But I like this decision that they took, as well as there's a panel that we do need to discuss. I almost completely slipped my mind. Was when Guts is being chained up, we see this panel which only shows what I'd assume to be the Beast of Darkness and the chains breaking. And this is one of those things where, even though right now Guts isn't absolutely losing it, which given the context of everything that's gone on would be completely understandable, there's an aspect of it's going to happen. He's a ticking time bomb, and we are there in anticipation for when it happens. Although I like that they're stalling it, because if it were to happen immediately after what just went on, we sort of get this instant gratification of Guts going crazy and killing everyone. And as I said before, I like this a little more because it shows more of the actual severity of it. And that's always been the whole point, especially with the Berserk armor and the Beast of Darkness. Yes, Guts gains power from it, but he stands to lose so much of what makes him him. And so it's this aspect that Guts absolutely losing it, given the delicate circumstances, given it was around, given that it didn't happen instantly, I think is on purpose for us to feel more fearful, to be more wary of it happening instead of us looking forward to it. Because Griffith is no longer there. The only people he could hurt are the people that cares about him. So that's a nice little touch to the chapter that I also enjoyed. From here on out, my speculations for what will happen in the next chapter, the more that I read stuff, the more that I go, you really can't say. And I hate theorizing because then I hate being completely wrong, which has happened on numerous occasions. It's part of it. But I do think that we are going to spend the next few chapters. Watch this be completely wrong. We're going to spend the next few chapters on this. The Kushans, Guts reuniting with Rickert, which, by the way, it's going to be interesting to see how that goes. And the way that Rickert scolded Griffith, I think it'd be a really neat moment to see Rickert try to uplift Guts. And it could be that. It could be what we see, sort of a mirror of those two situations when he catches up to each of those characters and see how they're doing, as well as Rickert being in Falconia and all of the other things going on with that, could really lead to, I think, a more precise plan to what they're going to do in order to retrieve Casca and to finally give Griffith what he's long deserved. But those are just some of my brief thoughts on the chapter. If you haven't checked it out, then I have no clue why you're watching this. But make sure you check out the chapter for yourself. And if you are new to the channel, been watching for some time, make sure you subscribe and like, as that helps a ton and only take a short amount of your time. This has been The Masked Man. Hope everyone has a blessed rest of the day, and peace.